What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Real World's first episode of The Value Add. We are going to be doing this every week where we introduce members of the Real World team and they share their stories, and hopefully we can all learn from these stories. And I will say this firsthand, having met everybody. I'm Jan, CEO. Hi. Having met and known so many folks for quite some time. They all are very, very inspiring folks. So I'd like to introduce our lead investor for our current equity crowdfunding campaign on ReelwUrld, wefunder.com/ReelwUrld, and anyone can join. Our lead investor, Ryan Kerrison, is here with us today, and he's going to be talking about his journey through world-class athleticism, working in the media, working in business finance, and I will say this: I met Ryan training Tai Chi in New York. I was teaching at the Assemblage. The Assemblage is it was a wonderful space that really was a convergence point for people who wanted to see a better world and were taking steps to make that happen through business, through finance, and more. So I was the head Tai Chi instructor in the space. I also did some consulting on transmedia storytelling with the CEO, the late CEO, God bless him, at the Assemblage. So I met Ryan. Ryan came into one of my classes, and he approached me afterward and just brought up that so many of the concepts in Tai Chi were very much, I'm just going to press mute there, very much connected to his high performance mentality as a former professional racer, as a former professional squash player, and for the businesses that he built, multiple media businesses that really achieved some very unique success in the world. So with that said, I want to pass it over to Ryan and have him just go from there.
Thanks, Jan. I think actually, could we leave it there? That was really good. So I can just leave everyone's imagination and fill the rest in. No, it's funny, we had this conversation just Jan and I casually last week, and we were talking about I was talking about my background a bit more, and he was writing notes, and he sent me a long email afterwards, and it's just like, really, could you do a Q&A on this? This would be really interesting. And I said, sure, I don't mind. I can't get it wrong. It's what happened to me, so I don't have to prepare for it really. It's just interrupt me if I just carry on too long. So if anyone has a question or something, just interrupt me, because otherwise I will just go on until everyone just finally hangs up. Yeah, Jan, I met at the Assemblage, obviously, as you said, and that was for me a period of time when I just left BY as young, which we'll get back to in a minute when we rewind 30 odd years. But they have a lot of classes at the Assemblage. It's a great place for wellness and nutrition and stuff, and I really enjoy working there. Then so I signed up for this Tai Chi class kind of as a whim, and I've done some martial arts stuff in the past, and I went to see, obviously he was there with Jan, and just instantly felt a connection to the way he was teaching people, the way he was showing the movements, the flow of energy, just connected to so many key elements in my life that have brought me to be able to add value to real world and advise and way forward in my career too. So and I found it was just such a strong, the same qualities were there. And I think the same qualities when later, I think after the Assemblage, it was about a year and a half, I think, Jan, wasn't it? I think we hadn't been in touch because you moved to LA, and then it was COVID, that thing came along. So we, I was seeing updates and stuff and thought he's doing really well. But and then we reconnected, and you spoke more about it, and I was like, he's put these same values are there. Oh, my light was good, wasn't it? The same values are there. So I said to him, I'd love to be involved and chat about it more and learn more. And I was just, and it struck me as surprising how many values that I'd learned over the years in these different disciplines had really they're a common thread through so many things in life. And so we went into that last week, and I'll go into a bit now. And again,
so, right, I'd like to just point out one thing you just said here is that quality is undeniable. I think that's one of the most important things that we're talking about with Real World, but also when it comes to what Real World is really focused on doing for the world, which is allowing people to have easier access to quality of character building for whether it's for stories or even the stories we tell ourselves actually affect our own lives. So if we can give ourselves the time-tested quality, the time-tested tools that really lead to that quality, then we're going to be better off. I think it's really as simple as that. And I think that's that very general but very for some reason in our culture, tough to attain concept is really where we're coming together. So many folks coming together, even on this call right now. As I switch to the gallery mode, so everyone can see, we have so many of our community members who I believe really truly live that and want more of that for the world. So just thank you for saying that, man. And I wanted to I wanted to bring up one thing. I want you to continue, but I was really struck by our conversation last week when it comes to you starting so young and the power of starting so young. And not to say that you have to start young to achieve in a particular place, but I think that I'll point this out. Starting karting, started driving race carts at 7 years old, and you were scouted for professional squash. I didn't know that professional squash did not have necessarily any particular age limits. He was scouted for professional squash at 11 years old and playing guys that were, even 45 years old at that age. And to become a pro racer at the same time that you were playing pro squash, you became a pro racer at 14 years old. And worked your way all the way up to the FIA, which is a very special license, and through up to I think Formula 2. There's the Formula 4, 3, 2, 1, I assume. And please, educate me and all of us on the.
You're making money. You're making money when you get to the one part, but I didn't get that far.
So I'm really interested in how, because of my experience with my coach, Josh Waiskin, the former chess prodigy turned martial arts champion, who recruited myself and my father into the U.S. Tai Chi push hands team. And I later took over the team from him as a team appointed captain and coach. What I learned from Josh was an ecosystem, creating your own ecosystem. And the way, to be very specific for Josh, and what I witnessed with Josh, he was writing a book called The Art of Learning, which anybody can go and check out right now. I recommend the Audible because Josh narrates it. And Tim Ferriss, the very close friends, bought the rights to the Audible, convinced Josh to do the narration. So it's great. And all the stuff he's talking about, the videos for the Tai Chi stuff, you can see on our Tai Chi YouTube channel. But he was writing that book at the same time that we were on the US team, that he was a coach, and his training would inform his writing, and his writing would help him break down his training. So he had this ecosystem where one thing helped to fuel the other thing. And it was very, very intentional. And there was always progress, measurable progress. So, I took that idea personally and adapted it to my life. The real world is very much based on what I call a transmedia trifecta, the relationship between the creator, the intellectual property that a creator creates, let's say George Lucas and Star Wars, and the studio system that actually releases that. In the Star Wars example, it's 20th Century Fox, but for us, it's very much shifted in culture to be lots of different entities working together. So that being said, I'm wondering how you used squash and how you used racing to inform each other and to result in the track record that you've had, even outside of that, through creating AAA media companies and more.
Well, I think thank you. That's really good, insightful stuff, and good correlation to real world. I think for me, and this is a story actually I didn't mention to you, Jen, when we spoke, but the first time I ever went karting was with my dad when I was 7. It was like a children's youth open day type thing, and they just put tires down the middle of the main straight, and you go to the left if you're coming to the pits, and you go to the right if you go in front of the lap. So first lap out, I go around and I go past the main straight and go in front of the lap. I look up to see if my dad's watching, and my left rear tire hits my the last tire on the tire wall, right? And the car just flips right over onto me. So the thing that then slows me down is my head and the front of the car. I got a good helmet, well, stock helmet, whatever they gave me at the karting club. Did the job, I think. Maybe my girlfriend would disagree, but no, it was all scratched up and everything. And I remember and I was fine, I had no injuries whatsoever. But I I was obviously like crying, whatever, and just like and then my dad like came along, picked me up. I thought it was okay to take me home, and the next thing he's just sat me back in the car, and I'm just like. And I didn't really know what was going on. He pulled a strap over and clicked me, and I was like, no. I was like, get me out of this. So if you don't go now, you'll never do this ever again. And I don't know, as a father myself, if I actually would have that same attitude. Now, he did me a massive favor that day, and it's a typical get back on the horse thing, obviously. But I was distraught, and whenever my kids, I've got 3 boys, whenever they get upset or something, I want to wrap them in the biggest cotton wool I can get and to keep going. So, it's for him to put me back in the car, I then kind of dribbled around the course, probably got the course record for the slowest lap ever. I think you can walk it faster. And then just kept going faster. And then I got into it, and that was it. It broke it for me. I didn't think of it again, and I got competitive, and it went from there. But it was that if I don't know how my life would have gone, because that was such a pivotal moment for me, karting, that if he'd have not done that, had it been. Also, if I'd not hit the tire wall, it also would have been the same result in my career. So if I had been more responsible, or he'd been a softer dad, then maybe either way, it's interesting. But no, the squash for me came about because
my dad. I'm sorry. I want to talk about that for 1 second too, because I met a wonderful skateboarder who moved into who did not. I'm wondering. He got an injury. And once he got that injury, doing some tricks, he said he can never do the tricks again the same way. He said he couldn't. It was all in his head. And I'm wondering for you, getting strapped back in and having that moment of being like, okay, I got to get out of here. And your dad's like, no, you have to stay. You have to do it. Because he knew that's the trajectory. If you don't get back in right now, then you may never get back in. So I'm wondering for folks who got back in like this skateboarder, but then still had the mental blockage that may not have allowed him to execute the way that he previously executed, and even go beyond it. What would any advice that you might have?
Yeah, I mean, it happens, and it happens later in your career as well. I had a few, crashes when I drove for Porsche in the US. I was here at just over 200 miles an hour. I was on the pit straight, so I came out of the pits on cold tires, hit the throttle too hard and went sideways and hit my rear end. So I went to put me into a spin at 200 miles an hour. I walked away from that because the cars are brilliant, and 911s are fantastic cars. But so it happens at all different ages. But the big difference is whether you caused the crash or it was or as a fault. So if I'd have had, like, I was going down the straight and a tire burst or something, then that probably would have been a bigger prohibitor for me to then get back up to speed than the fact that it was my mistake. So I wasn't concentrating enough. I was looking to see if my dad was watching me. All right, so it taught me that lesson. Just okay, you can't do that. You got to focus entirely where you are and dial into what you're doing. And that was the way I was able to rationalize. After a few laps of tiptoeing around and people going past me, waving at me, saying, "Come on," that was a way for me to rationalize. Okay, I did that to myself, so don't do that again. So I think that's a big factor. But even if it is a mechanical thing, as you go up the ranks and you have cars being prepared for you by engineers, you trust them. They're like your team, right? And it's like very much like there's a lot of Formula One drivers now. There's a few younger ones. And they're very good because they work with the teams. They'll be the last guy to leave the garage. They won't leave the garage as soon as the race is over and go to the hotel. They'll be there packing away the stuff with the team. And that cohesiveness in the team is strong. And you learn to trust them. You have to trust them. It's not in my control. So you focus on what's in your control, and that's the car. So even if you have a crash that is a mechanical fault, even though it's harder to get through mentally when you're younger, the peacefulness from that comes from, okay, you know what? I trust my team. I trust everything that's built here. I can't change that. I'm just going to drive as I drive and focus on what I'm focused on. So I think that was the big difference to me, is how I was able to get back in and get competitive again, get back up to speed. But because I never once looked at the crowd again. You know, so that was a big thing. But that's so through karting, obviously I went back the next week and did it. And then a coach at the kart club, and it's a famous Brands Hatch, near Brands Hatch, called it just changed the name recently, but it's where Lewis Hamilton used to go for one driver. And near Rye House, and they offered me to come back and be a part of their youth race team. So different race teams, or you escalate through engine size. So you get faster cars. So you have age groups and they're faster cars. If you do well, you can carry on. It doesn't cost too much money, but now a karting, like from 7 to 14 will cost you, or 7 to 13 will cost you about $1 million minimum, on like new tires and stuff like that. So there's some rich kids there that spend a lot, and they have an advantage. They have a little better suspension or better tires. We'd often get secondhand tires and things from people, to save them money. But you work your way up. So, but then obviously your physical fitness is a big difference. So, F1, legend Ayrton Senna was quite small, right? So he was phenomenally fast in the straights, but around the corners, not so much, right? Because the heavier guy was able to kind of use his weight as a balance, and driving really is always about balance. I think that's part of Tai Chi and stuff, and the freedom movement, And I've taught these things kind of a little bit away to my girlfriend, who's been very good at them. She's actually very good. I think would be actually a very good driver. But things like if you're going to brake really hard into a corner, obviously you're always braking in a straight line. But it's you tap the brakes first, then you put the brakes on hard. And that's really just to shift the balance of the car from being this upward trajectory of acceleration to flat. So all the tires have the maximum adhesion, the maximum amount of surface areas touching the ground when you put the full amount of pressure on the brakes. Otherwise, you might lock a front wheel. If you're straight from accelerating to braking, it will just go like that to that. And you could lock a front wheel and not make the turn. So to maximize your braking time, which is to minimize the braking distance, so you brake later, you have that tap kind of a thing. Just shifts the weight. And the same with, you see it with Formula 1 drivers on TV, on IndyCar drivers, on circuits. They will often steer, if it's a right-hand turn, they'll steer left and right. So just shift that weight balance across to get it back, and then across again. It's all about managing the tires and the tread. So much about karting and any kind of car driving and racing is management and understanding the car and feeling the car and balance. I think that's what I think is a key, gone through my life, through everything, is to make sure everything's balanced. Whether it's work, yes, we don't question the side rating. Exactly right. Yes. It's high. That's exacerbated with when in wet conditions and things like that, and not reacting too quickly. And people would tend to crash if they in wet conditions because they'll correct too much, and all of a sudden the front tires will get purchased, and the next thing you know, they're darting in the direction. But
right. I want to just point out three big points that I feel like you made here.
Yeah.
but before we keep going, for one, you were saying that you made the decision to amplify your focus. So the decision to amplify your focus, would you say it was as simple as a decision to amplify your focus, to say I can't do this again, I can only do this? So you made the decision.
Yeah, because the results of not making that decision were not good, and me trying to run the circuit, half-heartedly, that competitiveness in me was never satisfied. I was like, I want to be faster. That's, you're thinking, well, what do I do wrong? What do I do wrong? And you're like, well, just dial yourself in. You got one job right now, which is this car, and then feel the tires. And from one drivers today, the best talk about the tires, the surface of tires. If they talk about it like the texture of your skin on your hand, that they can feel it so intensely. So feeling the car is so important. And karting is great for that, 'cause it's so stripped down and bare. Haven't got big suspension like you have in a road car. It's just you're like an inch off the ground, and you just dart into the car. So you need to just completely absorb yourself in the world. I think that focus, that hyper focus, is really essential if you're going to progress in I think in anything, really, you look at anyone that's done, amazing things in their career, they've been hyper focused on something, and at the expense of other things in life. And that's where the balance comes in. We need to.
That's what we're working on.
Yeah, that's what. Ever since we talked about Real World, you've had me throw that balance off and be all about the real world. No, it's great, but
well, I mean, so I want to talk about balance and bringing that back into the second thing I want to underline, which was you've mentioned so many things. It's very much a Tai Chi principle as well, but it goes across so many. The wind up, the binding mechanic of going left before going right. If you want to go right, you go left first, and etc. And I think this is really interesting because it seems to me that bring it back to the squash, like it seems like the mechanics that you were learning there helped inform the racing.
Yeah,
and so could you talk a little bit about that? How again, this is now the one thing fueling the other thing, it seems.
Yeah, so squash was, my dad always played squash, and so he didn't really race cars that much, but I was interested in it. We got Formula One together, so that's why we got karting. But squash he played, so I started doing it as a way to keep fit for motorsports. So motorsports, you have to be, I mean, they're probably second to swimmers in terms of fitness. These athletes that really are high pressure, really, really. They're not like the old school drivers that could have finish off their can of beer and a cigarette before they got in the car. These days, they really are elite athletes.
Why would you say that? Are there? Because I want to know a little bit more about what it means to be in the cockpit, not the cockpit, the drive behind the driver's seat.
No, it's
okay, the cockpit. Okay, so like, what kind of strength do you need to be in full command of that vehicle?
A lot of it is the neck. Also, you lose a lot of you sweat a lot in the car. You're right in front of the engine. Everything around you is hot. They don't know everything on the car. Its sole purpose is the speed, and they have weight limits. So the more weight you have, then the less ballast you have to play with. So if they have a lighter car, they can use ballast around different parts of the car to make sure the car is nicely balanced.
Interesting. So you have to essentially optimize your body fat and your muscle mass. Okay.
Yeah, and it got ridiculous. A few years ago, it got ridiculous where the minimum weight was too low, I think, and drivers were just not eating or drinking enough, and if you would pass out after the race, and they're getting super skinny, so they changed that rule, made up to it a bit, but it all came down to it's every only you have 100 kilos of fuel in the car, so that's a big thing you got to take into account when you first race towards from the lights, racing towards the first corner, is that you're now racing towards the first corner for the first time on cold tires, which won't have as much grip, and you got 100 kilos of fuel on board, and you don't want to miss your braking point and let people go past you. You don't want to get the other way wrong and lock a tire and take someone else out. So that's always a delicate balance. Again, that's the fear in the car. But in terms of when you're in that cockpit, for me, it's very much once you're in that seat, it's nothing else really matters. You're dialed in and you feel everything. You hear every little noise, especially if you're leading a race. Every little noise, you'll hear a tweak of the car. You're like, the engine's not right, and it panics you. But so for me, fitness is a huge thing because you need strength in your neck because of the G forces. 3 or 4 Gs in your neck. So you think of your head weight plus the helmet weight around a lot 180 mile an hour curve. And you've been pulled this way. You need to have, you can't do that really. You need to be kind of focused in the middle. So you have a little bit of give, but you can't do too much.
Are you doing weighted neck exercises
Yeah.
Okay.
They have basically a lot of the drivers huge elastic bands attached something. You're just doing this.
Wow.
With your trainers and stuff. But a big part of it is reactions, obviously. So if you feel it, they try and say, there's a few key phrases that I wanted to bring out, which is like keeping ahead of the slide. And to bring it to real world, right? Everyone driving, if they're driving in New York tonight, for example, might be some black ice out there. And always having both hands on the wheel where you feel that car. And if you feel it start to step out, and it's just a slight adjustment to bring it back in, not a quick one, but a slight adjustment. But you need to be, that response time needs to be so quick. And even the stop lights have 5 lights to go red, then it goes out and it's race on. Your reaction times are like 0.22 of a second. So you have to really be dialed in to do these things. So a lot of Formula One drivers have what's called a Batak machine, which is like a wall of lights. It's almost like whack-a-mole, but LED lights, and they do it, and it starts, and they're like, it's all about just periphery vision and stuff like that, and just where is it and hitting it, and so that's a big part of the training is reaction time. So fitness, reaction time, your own speed is all important, and that's why squash was such a great thing to get into. My dad's already into it, so I played with him, and it's very much a exhausting sport, very physically demanding. You don't need to be big and muscly for it, which is good because you don't want to be big and muscly for racing either. And it's about reactions. And I was very fortunate. My coach was coached by the England coach at the time, and an England coach was in the school of thought of flow, energy flow, back to Tai Chi. And the textbook squash moves, you run, step towards a corner, stop, hit through the ball, and back out. And his was step towards the ball, hit it, flow, and move out, and you never stop. That was a big shift in my game for squash. It's what the pros do, it's what all the professionals do. But it was a big change. I used to go on the squash court by myself and just do ghosting, just the racket, and just do from the tee, which is the middle of the court, and just go and do ghosting, run to the front, do ghosting. I'll be sweating for do 45 minutes or so, just headphones on. So, and the reaction part, my coach would be behind me for some sessions, and it'd be like, I'd be standing on the tee, and it'd say, forehand volley, jump, backhand volley, jump, forehand drive, I go down. So it was very much a quick reaction. So, which in squash you need, and in racing you need. So squash was really something that I did to give my fitness level high for racing, and to keep my reactions and my sharpness kind of there. And bring in what you mentioned before, how I was playing with 45-year-olds. I played for my school at the time, played for the county, eventually played for England as well. But I was also part of a local men's team. Now, all of a sudden, playing a men's team was another big lesson in life for me. Is I played these men that were like 45 years old, a little bit of pot bellies. I could run rings on them for hours, right? Hours wasn't a problem. But because my fitness is super high, I'm young and everything, and so they have all these little tricks, these little shots they do, these little like stepping your way a little bit. So you start to learn, like, okay, I was like, what are they doing? I'm like, I'm coachable. I'm textbook coachable. So I was like, I'm by the book, and they're not playing by the book. How are they doing this? Because they've learned from just playing casually with their friends. I've learned because I've had lessons, I've been trained. I'm like, but this is abnormal. This isn't like Rafael Nadal versus Federer kind of style difference. This is like, it's just Joe Schmo playing, who's just learned by hitting the ball around. And he's got his little tactics. He's like, I can't beat the little bastard when around the court, but I could step in his way a little bit and get him, knock him off his game. And I remember one game, this guy, all he could do, the only shot he could do was off the serve, was a high cross-court lob. And it was like really hard for me to stretch to hit it. And every single time he did it, I could, I'd hit it back either poorly and he'd punish it and, win the point, or I'd hit it out. And he beat me that game. And I was so much better than him, but he beat me. And I was just so frustrated at that. But, it hurt like must not hurt as in injury, but I felt this muscle here that I'd never felt before. I was like, oh, this muscle back here. I was like, I told my coach, is that okay? We're doing high volleys. So the next week we do these high volleys, which was agony. But it was, but that knowledge and knowing, okay, you're not going to come across fair competitors. You're going to come across people that aren't going to play fair, or fair in a different sense. Maybe they're playing by their own rules they developed, and it's so that gave me a life lesson in many respects. And it's come through the business. People do different things in business. They try and trip you up, or they'll subconsciously mention a price for a product, for a video, for something they want you to do, just to get that in there early on. And then when they come back to pricing, they think you've already kind of perceived that thought. They'll say, oh, I've only got a 12K budget or something early on. And then like when it comes around to actually talking about pricing, always in your head is 12K, 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 12K. You price out like 40K, you just they're planting these little seeds into you. So it made me aware, because I've been in a very controlled environment, racing and squash at the time. for me was very controlled. Had a coach for each. I was going to, officially organize events, had regulations and rules, and everyone adhered by them, and everyone did the same thing. So, and all of a sudden you see these people that are breaking those rules, and then they're not really rules; they're just doing it a different way. And it made me realize at a very young age that okay, there isn't just this one way, this one structured way of doing it, but you can do it another way and be effective. You can beat me, and I've got to overcome that.
So that's interesting. It reminds me of something that Josh and the assistant coach Dan Caulfield, both of them worked with me to understand the concepts of unspoken agreements, and that in every arena there's a slew of unspoken agreements that if you identify those and then do something different, you can throw off the opponent. And when I entered into judo, for example, and I'm a white belt in judo, but I'm playing against black belts and throwing them on the floor, the way that I got to get to that position in that place was recognize that one of the things that they would do was they would start by holding the lapel. They would allow the competitors would allow each other to actually just get a grip on each other as part of the unspoken agreement before the play starts. And so if I just wouldn't let that happen, then I'm playing my game rather than playing their game. And so would you say that is a similar concept of what you recognize?
It definitely is. Yeah, and I think that's the same for like karate, right? So people that they a certain way they go about it, and I think but someone in karate would go against someone's with jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, for example, and not stand a chance because they're used to their, and the jiu-jitsu guy can see what the karate black belt's going to do, guy's going to do a mile off. He's setting himself up for this type of move, and he'll just counter it with a different move that the karate guy's like, you can't do that. What? You can't do that. So, and these disciplines can pigeon. I mean, they pigeonhole you for a reason because it's about a teaching, it's a methodology that works. But in the real world, when you apply it on a broader spectrum with other people with different disciplines, it's like it almost hinges upon your success. So squash taught me that, okay, not everyone's going to be fair. Now in racing, how it translates is crashing with someone. So if someone's going to overtake you, usually at the start of the season,
I was going to ask you about sharing the concept of inviting the crash, which I
this is it. Yeah. So which is if you go into like a 50-50 kind of corner, where someone's trying to overtake you, you're trying to overtake them, whatever it may be, is you need to show who you are as a driver to everyone else, and if you're willing to crash, then you just stick it in there. So it's 50-50, and you might say, okay, you know what, I'll back out this because we're going to crash and hit front wings or something like that, or knock us out of the race, where the repercussions are. This is what you do at the start of the season when things don't matter as much.
It's like that first scene in Akira, that chicken game, the two motorcycle guys.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. And if there was two racing drivers that both hit each other. Because, and you're told, I was told, don't yield, just stick it in there. And if he crashes into you, so what? He crashed into you. But then every other person will know that if it's 50-50 with Ryan, he's not going to yield. So you better get out of the way unless you want to crash. So you set the tone for who you are straight away. And it's counterintuitive, but it makes a lot of sense. And I think that's how it applied in racing, is breaking your own rules. You're like, okay, no, I'll conservatize it back out of this, I'll get him on the next straight, or I'll try and do the overlap, whatever it is, but you got to know, I'm gonna stay in here and let everyone know that I'm relentless. I'm the wolf here. It's that kind of mentality.
Right. I want to pause on that. I want to just highlight this for a second, because I think this is really, really important, especially, I keep on talking about my experience in the Tai Chi world. And the reason and yielding is a major component of Tai Chi. However, the understanding that yielding is something that you want to be really good at, but not something that you always do, I think is something that I often get into, or I should say, I often avoid challenging conversations with Tai Chi players because they believe so wholeheartedly that in Tai Chi you yield. And that is just something that you do. However, I think it's just as important to be able to create the wall, to be able to say, I am firm, I am strong, I will not yield. So to be able to do both of those things to me is actually balance versus saying that, okay, like you either do one thing or the other. And if you're only good at one or the other, then you're obviously out of balance. So I think it's a really interesting concept that especially from a competitive mindset position of saying, hey, you know what, when I step into the arena or when people see me on the track, they know that I will, when it comes down to it, I'm willing to give my all rather than back out. And I think that message is super important because in that you can still have so many options, but just the standard has been set. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah.
It's really, really important.
I see
takeaway. Someone
commented on Sensei Girl said that I heard somewhere bad boxers get hit, good boxers get hit less. Yeah, in that for boxing, I think definitely the defensive part of it is great, but I think it's it's controlling your opponents, right? It's giving your opponents an impression of yourself, and that they, and it's frustrating. If I was boxing someone and I kept blocking everything really well, it'd be incredibly frustrating.
So Mike's got a question.
Yeah, go for it, Mike.
Oh yeah, so I just wanted to comment. What I meant there was that if you're gonna box at all or do any combat sport, you have to be willing to get hit, or if you're doing Tai Chi, you have to be willing to lose. I wasn't saying walk and get your face smashed. I was saying you have to be ready to make something.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I got you. I got what you're saying. Yeah, and and it's true. And I think you have to learn that. That you do survive. You're fine. It's like I'll give a terrible analogy. My dog is a good swimmer, right? But he he was what's the word? Sorry. Trepidatious. That doesn't make sense, but anyway, he was not. You know what I mean. He was cautious about going in the water, so I just threw him in. Right, threw him in, and once he got in, he was fine. He ran back to me. I picked him up. I threw him in again. The third time, he ran straight past me and jumped in. And once he knew he couldn't die from it, it was all right. He loved it, and he was fine. And I think so you have to get hit. You have to go through some of these things. You're right, and then you can learn to circumvent them. You can learn to deal with them if it catches you off guard, and it won't throw you off your game for the rest of the match if you're boxing, or squash if someone barges you, even though they win, you get a point out of it or something. You're not, it doesn't knock off your game.
You said something really, really powerful that I remember in our conversation along to this point, which was the moment you don't go for a gap is the moment you're no longer a racing driver.
Well, it's not my quote, it's Adam Senna's quote, so I can't take his quote. He was a legend, but he used to say the moment you don't go, he was at the time he was being criticized for a crash that he was involved in, where he went for a gap that opened up and it resulted in him crashing. And he said the moment you don't go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver. And I think to me, I kind of took that in a lot and then turned it into kind of creating the gap. So I create that opportunity. And that is a mixture of all the skills we talked about. So you
adapted that into whether going for the gap or not to creating the opportunity.
It's kind of like one step before. So if the gap isn't opening up, whatever, I'm going to try and create it either by taking a line. If I'm following someone, my line into a certain corner is always going to be wider than his, so he knows that's what he does, that's what his move is. And then all of a sudden I switch tactics and go the other side. It's almost like I can't remember which boxing film it was. Then this boxing analogy is taken off now, but I love it. But where all of a sudden switched to being left-handed or something, and not to think it was Creed maybe, but it was boxing. He goes, maybe it was the Jake Gyllenhaal one actually. And he switched, and he goes, now I switches to being left-handed, and he just takes him out. And and it's the same thing. So you lead that opponent down this route, and you carry on that pattern, and then all of a sudden you can switch it up. And I think yes, all these things are just tools that I think that again, they reared themselves up in both these disciplines, in squash and in motorsports for me, and that just drives it home even more. So a big thing for me, the big motivating kind of words for me are send it, right? So I say send it a lot, and for a lot of drivers, if you hear them on the radio, they say send it, which is like sending it down the inside. So if you're going to overtake someone, just send the car in there, just send it in there. It's almost like, go for it, you can do it, go on, get past him. So send it for me, and my company that I started called Flat Out. Go flat out, give it everything you got. So that mentality has always come across anything I put myself into. And if it's not something I'm going to apply that to, then it's not something I'm interested in. So I shouldn't do it.
Ryan, Avel's got a question.
Go for it.
Hi. I had a couple questions actually. Being as how you have reached a certain level of mastery in the things that your goals in your career. I was curious if you ever experienced, this is kind of a newer concept to me that has come into my focus, called Imposter Syndrome. And I was curious, starting at a young age, is that something that you still experienced? And if so, how you have dealt with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's probably more coming to play for me in the business world, which I'll briefly touch on in a minute. But yeah, you do. I mean, certainly when I started racing internationally or across Europe, different people, on your home ground, people and sometimes I go alone, so like that, you feel very vulnerable. You think like, oh, shouldn't these guys are really good. I'm not good enough to be here. But honestly, once you're in your helmet, in your car, whatever, you're in that zone. That's your safe place. And the cockpits of today, these cars, the safety cells, or the way you sit, is like it's kind of like a coffin in a way, but it's the strongest part of the car. So the car, everything else is designed to crumble off around you in a big crash, but the safety cell which you're in is solid. So once you're in that, back in your car, your driving position and stuff, then you feel you overcome anything else that gets blocked out, and you just focus on. And ultimately, I think the same thing with squash and something with motor racing. It comes down to you, right? So what other people do is important, obviously, but you're not affected. What you do doesn't really necessarily always affect them, how they perform. If they're performing really well and they're really good at braking later than you or something, I can't do much about that apart from trying to push myself. So it's down to me to be better. And with squash, if they're very good at playing certain shots, all I can do is try and avoid them from playing that shot. But I think in terms of that vulnerability, probably more got into my head in squash than in racing. Because in racing you are in that zone, but in squash you're not. You're exposed. That's why I'd never buy a motorcycle or ride a motorcycle, because a car I feel very safe in, and I drive. I don't drive too fast, but a little bit fast. But if and I'm competitive, so if someone came alongside me or something on the freeway, I don't want. I put my foot down a little bit and get past. It's just childish thing. But if I was on a motorcycle, I'd try and probably do the same thing and end up probably killing myself. So I'm not in that safety cell. I'm not protected by a car. But yeah, so with squash, you're exposed to some degree. So maybe it's more relevant there. But again, it's getting into your rhythm. And if you get into your rhythm, you're fine. Because if you're a split second off in squash, for example, you're not in the right position when you hit the ball, and you're going to hit not a tight shot along the wall. It's to be a bit loose and enables them to attack it. So I noticed that mostly when I stopped. I didn't play squash, I think, for about 3 months. I think I got injuries, I think, because I don't drink at all, because motorsports and squash didn't, your fitness all the time. And I think I drank one night. I jumped off a truck or a van, just a roof, to jump down. I was being an idiot. I mean, I hadn't drunk before. I was in college. I bruised my heel, right? And it sounds pathetic, but it bloody hurt. Bloody hurt. And I could barely walk. And my roommate took me to hospital. He said, you better have broken something because I'm pissed off having to drive you to the hospital right now. And there was nothing wrong with my foot. It was just a bruised heel. But it hurt so much. And I couldn't play squash for a while because that little injury. And it made you realize how fragile you are, really. I felt invincible at the time, but it did hurt actually a lot of the time, which is a bad sign, I think. It hurts when you're drunk. But no, that imposter thing does come in, I think, to everyone. And then career-wise, it came in a lot. But things move so quickly these days, especially with social media, with everything online. Everything moves so fast that you don't really almost have time to pause and have that doubt. I didn't prepare for this. I don't prepare for meetings. I just throw myself in and let it go where it goes. Often, despite this, I'm involved a lot of listening, especially to clients. And like when I've worked at Ernst & Young, if you're a good consultant, you listen to what the client has to say, and then you repeat it back to them in a slightly different way. And all of a sudden, they love you and they want to hire you because they want to hear validation. But yeah, so that's the imposter syndrome probably for more in the business world. Like, can we do this? And, we had a good streak now, but is that just luck or whatever it is? And it's something I haven't thought about for a while. Actually, you've kind of got me there. I thought about, but so tomorrow I'll be really off my game. I'll be like, oh no, I can't do this. I'm really.
So what I hear from you is that you make it a point to be really focused in the moment. And so, do you think that Tai Chi has helped you? Is that something that's helped bring you? And do you have, like as an actor, we often have these like warm-ups that we do before we're going to get into a scene, or, just like you would warm up before you exercise or play a sport. Do you have any warm-ups to get mentally prepared for a race?
Yeah, it's basically getting into my own zone. I think, and that kind of plays into, I'm an only child. So my dad always worked away, and so I had a lot of time on my own. And so my safe place is kind of myself in a way. And I've got too many pairs of noise cancelling headphones that I wear, and that gets me in the zone pretty much. I put them on and block the world out, and I get into my own head. And nothing else matters. If I've got this bill to pay or this thing to deal with, right now I can't do anything about it. And that took a while to really internalize and put into practice that skill, especially with business, because you'd be like, well, I'm writing this pitch or something, and I do have to reply to this email from my boss and that. It's hard. It was harder in that sense, but with sports and stuff, it was just like, this is quiet time, no one disturb me, headphones on. And I even when I was working at different agencies and things, I have headphones on because that was a sign to everyone else that Ryan's busy. And often I wouldn't have any music play. I could hear them. I hear someone go, Ryan. I would just ignore them because they don't know I'm not listening to music. But it was because I had to stay inside my head, I had to stay inside my zone, and I couldn't be interrupted with meetings. So I put 4-hour blocks so I could get a piece of work done. Otherwise, you can't get anything achieved. So the Tai Chi is something that I think has relaxed me a lot. I think has brought a peacefulness to a lot of that process, and a peacefulness to a lot of the preparation. The kind of I think it just gives you strength, gives you great strength in yourself. Yeah, someone said but helps me block out the noise. I think that's right.
That's Ruben, one of our not only a JFH hero, but a Shaolin monk and Tai Chi practitioner. We have a few Tai Chi practitioners on here. Ryan, I wanted to go across a few ideas that you shared. Thank you, Abel, for those great questions. I wanted to go through a few ideas that you shared that I thought added a instant value to me when we spoke about this. And I'll say that just to close out one of the previous things we spoke about, creating the gap, that's 100% what we're doing with Real World, which is recognizing opportunity in the world of media, and specifically the opportunity that we all have utilizing these devices in our pocket with cameras on them to create our own, to create story, to create cinematic stories, and to tie them together, to actually unite our stories, and what that actually means for what we're used to and accustomed to as a culture in terms of cinema. We're accustomed to a larger entity placing a story in front of us and then essentially accepting that story. That's what has happened for many years. And that narrative has gradually been shifting. And I think in the last couple of years, it's what we've been preparing to do, and the gap we've been creating has very much synced up with culture, where people want their stories. They want their stories heard, and we want to feel more unity. So I think that on when it comes to creating a gap, for years I was pitching Real World in Hollywood, and then in the New York startup ecosystem, and in both places that are both very similar. People were saying, "You're nuts, you're crazy," and now we're in a position where culture meets as Deepak Chopra would put it, preparedness meets opportunity equals luck. So you are lucky if you prepared and then the opportunity comes to you. So I love where we are right now, because we are very well prepared for the world, which is now asking for the exact thing that we prepared. So I think the value of creating the gap is the recognition of your preparedness will meet the opportunity.
It is, definitely. Sorry.
So the next thing I wanted to connect on is that you shared an amazing, you were talking about braking earlier. And
yeah.
I remember we were talking about the concept of apex speed.
Yes.
Sacrificing apex speed for position. And that to me was really dynamic. And I think a lot of people can get something out of that.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. And the recently crowned Formula 1 world champion, Max Verstappen, I was watching a video from a guy that I used to race with, a guy called Scott Mansell, who has a channel called Driver 61. He's a very good commentator on the sport, and he's just very level-headed and lovely guy. He talked about Max Verstappen's braking style, and it's one that I've had for years, but I've not seen anywhere else, and it's certainly not been taught anywhere else. I've seen taught anywhere else, and he coined it. I can't remember he coined it now. Whatever, he gave it a name, and he's like, I'm gonna claim that as mine. And I called him afterwards, and I shot him an email afterwards, and I said, so that's exactly the move I make. That's exactly how I do it. Rotate. So overtaking, and I'll explain this in a quick summary. But obviously, the best thing with overtaking is that you're following someone into a corner, you step out, and you brake later than them. But you have to keep braking in a straight line. Again, balance. It's keeping that balance. So you brake, and you come off the brakes, and you turn in. And at the apex, which is the slowest part of the corner, so you should be going. It's very rare that the other car will be on the outside of you. Very rare. They're going to be tucked in behind you, trying to get your slipstream for the next turn. That's assuming no one crashes into each other, obviously. So as I thought about that, I thought, okay, well, when you step out, sometimes you can't always late. If someone's a late breaker, they're going to do it. But I looked at it as almost Pythagoras' theorem. So you've got this triangle for this corner. He's going to break in a straight line, and he's going to turn in. Almost like the right hand, the 90-degree turn. I thought I'm going to go the diagonal, right? So I think this is going to be a better path. I can brake a lot later. I've got more road, and then when I get to the apex, I'm going to have a much slower minimum speed than he will have normally, because it's not the typical racing line. But he's behind me, so it doesn't make a difference, because he's stuck behind me. So he's have to go slow as well. So I tried to draw it actually for Jam, and I didn't do a great job of the drawing, I admit. So I'm going to do it again, and once more do it bad. Example of the drawing, but it'll give you the good reference. And here's my little move. So it's a terrible job of drawing. This is my opponent. This is me. Going into the apex here, they were kind of breaking a straight line here and then turn in. and I would just go diagonally straight towards the corner. So my artist career was very short, as you can tell.
You were the one on the left or the one on the inside?
The one that got in front, inside.
Okay.
So I went on the inside, but it was so normally on the inside you pull alongside of them, brake in a straight line with them, brake late on them to get in front of them to then turn in, and that's the typical move of most overtaking in Formula One and different karting sports and different motorsports. But it was one race I was doing. I think it was karting. I was just frustrated because I couldn't get past this person. He was braking late. I couldn't do it. And I think I did it once where I stepped out, braked late, really later than him, and I missed the corner. So I just went wide, and he just put touch on the inside of me, and off he went. And I was like, damn it. So I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna nosedive towards the apex. Just gonna nosedive towards it. So I just flicked my car. So it was rather than kind of smoothly stepping out, it was just like a flick of the wheel to keep my balance right, and then just go straight towards the corner, which is the most inefficient way to take the corner if I was doing like my own lap on my own. But because my minimum speed on that corner was probably 15 miles an hour slower than it had been on every other lap. And so the person I overtook is frustrated as hell, right? He's like, I've nosedived, so he's not seen me do it because it's last minute. So he's noticed I haven't stepped out, so he's not seen me do that. So he's not thinking, okay, he's going to try and overtake me. I've surprised him, plus I've got in front of him, and now I'm blocking him because I'm going so slow. He's like frustrated, you can't get past me, and you can't go around me because it'll take too long to go around me. We're now both here accelerating. So, and after that, it became something that I would often do, as long as the track surface was fine doing that, and the corner was right for it. It was something that I found very effective. But it's not a taught way to brake. But Max Verstappen, the current world champion, he does it a lot apparently.
So this is super interesting to me in terms of a longevity principle, because by sacrificing speed for or apex speed for position and this concept of braking late and putting yourself by nature of it, and please correct me if I'm misunderstanding this, but it seems like you're using angle to position yourself, even though someone else is faster than you. You're using angle to position yourself and timing of your braking and braking late to get yourself in a position that's actually in front of the person that's faster, and thereby essentially causing the person behind you or the people behind you to move at your speed. And this is really interesting when it comes to just the concept of longevity, because I think so much in our culture, I would, as a kid growing up around my parents' martial arts masters, and then starting to train very seriously myself, especially in my teens, I start to see and feel in my body the value of the longevity practices. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I just keep this up for a really long time, I'm going to get to a point where I'm watching, folks who are moving faster, doing things that I, on one side, I'm like, oh, I wish I could go with that speed, but I don't know how to do that yet, or I'm not proficient in that yet. But if I keep on doing this, play the long game, I'm essentially going to be in a position that they may not be able to maintain with their fast game. So it's I'm hoping that I'm getting the right gist of this, because it sounds very, very similar to my journey in the martial arts, but also to, again, the creating the gap concept and preparedness meeting opportunity, just continuing to prepare and just knowing that, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm going to keep doing my thing, and eventually the world will catch up.
Yeah, and I think what I noticed with you, Jam, is that you had that intuition with Real World, and you had the cross-pollination of skills from what you in Tai Chi, etc., was applied to Real World. And for me, so stepping into my professional work career, very briefly, is I had all these skills. So I had all these, from driving. I think sports and team sports and stuff, when people are young, it just gives everyone such strength as they move past college and into the real world, it just teaches you so much about having respect for your teammates and competition. I think.
Connect us from the pro racing and pro squash world to
yes, I will do.
media,
yeah,
the achievements in media. That'd be great.
So I basically always while any free time I had, I'd always enjoy filming different things. And drones I went into. I was filming the cars quite a lot, different cars at practice. And when I kind of came to the end of my racing career in the UK, which means I didn't make it F1, which is a lot of politics in it, and they have low tolerance of your success. For example, so if I'm someone that built up to the limit, there's maybe another point that you like, Jen, but obviously the faster way around a circuit, you build your speed up, right? So you don't go into a corner and throw it in there. You'll take it cautiously and find where that limit is, and build yourself. And then next time you can brake a bit later, and then a little bit later, until you find that kind of optimal point that's going to give you the maximum lap time. Some drivers have a natural gift. I don't have it. Other drivers did and do, and which they know the limit all the time, and they'll go on a track, and within 2 laps they'll be putting in the fastest laps all weekend. The same as that lap time will match the fastest laps that are achieved by everyone or the whole weekend. And all the cars are the same at these points, and all the junior categories. So it's really, there's no excuse to being as fast as everyone else. If you look at Formula 2 and Formula 3, there'll be 30 cars or something in Formula 3, and they're separated by 7/10 of a second from first to 20th, for example. So, which is, and they have drilled holes in the rear wing, right? 9 holes, and you can adjust your rear wing 3 different ways. That's it. And that's the only change they can make. So it's down to the driver to then make a difference, which is what it should be. It's the best drivers get through and move up. It's not always the truth, because money comes into it. Like, one of the guys bought a team. That's a bit of one good way of doing it, isn't it? He had a Russian dad who had a lot of money. But besides that, so I moved to America. I got a contract with Porsche to drive for Porsche in Atlanta for the 911s and the Carrera Cup. So I drove for them for 4 years. And during that time, I really got into filmmaking a lot more, got better drones. I was filming the cars on the experience days and hovering around. It's probably the airport, so if you're a little bit careful. But I'm flying around, and then Porsche let me do a few commercials for them. And that was good, because it kind of got me, obviously it was a great first client to put up, and I got more into that. And then applying the same principles I learned through squash to how you escalate, the politics of racing and stuff, and how you can network and everything else, because you want to be signed by a team or race for a certain driver. Networking is key. So you start doing that in media world when you're saying you're approaching this from very much a sports perspective. And that mentality, and that just for me, fortunately, it was the right time with drones and everything else. I was just very interested in very authentic narratives, focusing on the key authentic narratives that represent a brand and sticking to that very strongly. And then using technology like drones and stuff. I was always into that. I think that's being an only child as well. Creativity came out of me spending a lot of time alone, because if I wasn't very creative, I'd be very bored very quickly. So I keep myself entertained by thinking of things to do. That's why I think of a different move to get past someone in racing, because I'm thinking, okay, this isn't working. What else can I do? My mind's always just going, and that's a burden sometimes because I can't sleep. But and it's also a burden if I'm given a podium because I don't show up. So sorry, you can jump in whenever you want. But no, but it's so that creativeness was able to come through, and I was able to position it in a way that, and I do this in racing as well and with squash, put myself in another person's shoes, which is a key thing for anybody, anything they do. If you can empathize with someone, if you can put yourself in that position of what they're doing, okay, what are they thinking right now? Looking at their tires? How are they driving? How are they balancing their car differently? Now they're taking a different route into this corner. Why is that? And try to put yourself in their headspace. I would apply that in business to, okay, what does this client want? And then I would just tell them, I'd answer it before they asked it, because I'd work out what they want. Okay, I'd say, this is what I'm thinking. and they'd be like, "That's exactly what I want." And it was so easy. It just happened like that. So they would take that kind of practicing with Porsche, with the drones and stuff, to then build a company around it. And then that was acquired by an ad agency ultimately, who I then worked for and ran a division of for 4.5 years, and then worked at EY, whose culture I didn't. It wasn't too bad. I just wasn't my culture. It was the main reason I left. We had a $4 million deal with Formula One that I'd brokered and got signed, and then I was told by audit independents that we couldn't work with them because we'd given them some advice 3 years ago. So I had to go back and tell them, "Sorry guys, we just know we were signed and everything, but we can't do it." And that kind of broke me a little bit, and I was undone. So I worked my way out, and then that would have to pay my sign-on bonus back. But and then started my flat out, which is when I spent time at assemblage, which is applying the same principles of driving to advertising and representing young drivers. You need money, but Formula One drivers are very expensive and they're very tied into the teams, and they've got regulations around what they can do and stuff. Lots of brands already sponsor them, but younger drivers don't. I mean, and they need money. And they need, like, some of the drivers that went from F2 to F1 did spend £600,000 a day on tires alone for testing. Because the more you practice in that car, it's the same car for everyone, the better you'll be at the next race. So any bit of money I can get for a driver that's in F2 or F3 would be, like, a godsend for them. So I partner with brands. The best example is Moleskine, right? Moleskine have these Pen Plus books where everything you write, it Bluetooth syncs to the cloud through your phone. So drivers make notes every race. A bump on the exit at turn 3. Take turn 5 in 5th gear. Whatever it may be. So they slightly right on the entry to turn 6. All these little notes they'll make, and throughout the race weekend. And the following year, they go back to the same circuit. They'll reference the notes from the year before, and they'll use that as a baseline to. It goes down to gear ratios and stuff as well, which is too technical. But the point is, if they forgot their book, they wouldn't have their notes. Now, not all the creative was based on them being idiots, but their coach should look at the notes from 2,000 miles away because it's on the cloud. They could come in with suggestions. So it became this, and I just pitched it to Moleskine and just went to them, and they were like, "We love it." And 6 Instagram videos came out of it. So we were on my drivers, which gave him a bit of money, and so again, it's that authentic narrative. If it isn't authentic, people won't get it. People won't grab onto it, and that's what I love about Real World. It's created by real people doing actually authentic stuff they're passionate about, adding to this bigger picture that is so cohesive and works. That I think is just is what Hollywood needs.
Ryan, I want to bring this back to because I completely agree with you in terms of the value of authenticity, of course. I did some writing this past weekend it's on my latest Medium post of the concept of the positivity model, and that TikTok, as an example, has really positioned itself in a way that streaming platforms can't right now, because of the energetically, the content on TikTok is often called very positive. And it's not positive because it's happier per se, but because of the clear channel that TikTok has provided between us as users and the creator we're watching. We can feel their heart. And that in and of itself, being able to have the clear channel to the creator's heart, gives a positive feedback, creates a positive feedback loop for us, whether it's happy or sad or whatever it might be. The voice, we can feel it, versus something created by committee that can essentially take the heart of the creator and disperse that channel and make it more challenging for us to actually find the true creative essence of that thing we were watching. So therefore, any streaming platform full of content created by committee, by a corporation, by studios, packed on your home screen versus opening up TikTok and just getting that creative clarity. And Marvel, I think, did a great job of identifying that and saying for Spider-Man No Way Home, saying that, hey, you know, we're going to make a story that's about rather than defeating the villains, actually healing the villains, and then drawing a line between that narrative and the TikTok community and saying, hey, you know what, let's do our best to break the fourth wall a bit and allow the users to feel like these characters are with them. They're very accessible, etc. So it's
a good example. Yeah.
Where Real World is, I believe, is a few steps ahead in terms of storytelling and actually connecting the story, bringing all of us into the story rather than still being audience members. If you look at the way TikTok is marketing their platform to advertisers, etc., it's still engagement. It's still selling your product to fans and having fans sell your product for you by making fan videos. They're not really giving fans the agency to be the core creators in the same way that Real World hopes to, or is through our first show, Justice for Hire, saying, hey, you are your character, you own your character, we are building together. But like, you know, it could be Guru Merkaba's character or Tai Chi Wonder's character or Elixir's character that becomes their own major franchise. But we're all, any character that can happen for any of them, and it could be anybody's.
And it's massive, and I think, so to jump into a bit of that, but to agree with you on that, I think it's massive. I think especially in the culture today, people are almost, some people are afraid to say their opinions because there's so many divisions across just America, obviously. But I think through content we can create narratives that are representative of us in a way that doesn't conflict with people. You know, I think a lot of that, you know, designed by committee, stuff like that, you know, absolutely hate, detest it. And we would always have a client version and then director's cut of most of the videos we did. I mean, L'Oreal were once, and they wanted to change a shot from, they said, oh, could we do some post production work on that, and that could be a nighttime shot? I was like, no, shot in the day. We can reshoot if you want to pay some more, but no, we can't do it. But they because someone just woke up in a meeting all of a sudden. It's like, oh, I did. And they literally took screen grabs and sent me a brand new storyboard to cut to, and it's like, well, we can't do that. It doesn't work that way. But with clients, I'm always like, we'll do our best. But but that can't be possible. We'll do what we can. But we'd always have our own director's cut. We'd go on our website, and they would have their cut, because we weren't tied to the success of the video. As long as the client was happy, they'd rehire us, right? So what they did with it afterwards is up to them. But I think again, it's that, and it's cover your ass mentality. A lot of it. They want to say to their boss, "Oh, I did this thing. I made that one change. It was really important to focus this one part of the product." It's like, just shut up. Get people interested in the brand. Get people interested in the product of what you're doing, and then the brand of them, the products will sell themselves if they're good enough. Well, so
yeah, I want to. I mean, I want to connect your. Alex joining us, who's wanted to talk to you for a while. I want to connect these concepts together, because the heart, of course, is of utmost importance. It's our compass to the world. It's we call it intuition, but being able to, or the compass component of it being the intuition, but the heart itself still being our clear channel to the world, and ideally doing everything we can to remove the blockages between our heart and in any interaction. And it seems that you utilizing your heart and these skill sets that you started training as a kid, both in racing and in squash, helped you develop essentially the tools that allow you to then apply those same skill sets to other areas. So you took your squash training, applied it to racing, took your racing experience and ability to network, etc., and applied that to media. You then took your media expertise became the lead investor in Real World, and but I mean, and did so many other things as well. And
so did you too, and you too with Real World. That's, you know, it's, I think everyone has the background. You can, if you're introspective enough and look at what you've learned from different areas, you can take those elements out and you know, you can easily apply them to what you're doing in a different space. I think that's what makes the strongest people in any industry. I think that have that dexterity to learn from the past. I think I said to you before, like if ever I'm in a discussion with someone or a disagreement with someone, I prefer to be wrong than right, because I learn something from being wrong. And you know, typically, normally it's my girlfriend that's right. Is normally right. Well, she's always right, actually. So I learn a lot. But yeah, it's definitely something that if you can transfer those skills from different disciplines and apply them like you've done with Real World, I think that's what impressed me the most when we were first reconnected again. And that's why, you know, everything you've got, everything that you're hitting with Real World's, all the approaches you have right now, I think are spot on, just what everyone needs. I think that's why it's going to grow. It's why it's grown. It's why it's going to continue to grow and be a success.
No,
that's why I'm here.
I want to open it up now to even more questions that anyone might have in the spirit of applying skill sets that we might have in any particular area of our life to another area for the greater goal. Ryan, something you said last week is that you always have the long-term goal in your head. And I think that that's so important for each one of us, because there's something that we're all here to do. And to be able to identify that and keep that feeling in our hearts and in our minds. And sometimes we need help to nudge us back onto that path and to optimize, especially our performance on that path. So any questions that anyone might have for Ryan, please let's go for it. And hold on, let me fix that. I pinned myself by accident for that. But Ryan, I had one in particular that I want to ask of you, and that is as a director, because you know Ryan has produced, he's directed written content, edited content, even gave me a little hack on animation last week, because I'm doing a little action figure animation with my son. So as a director, how has it been for you taking the ability to manage stress at a high level? And you've talked about different scale. I know if you go to ryankerrison.com or Flat Out's website, you'll see the caliber, AAA content that he's producing for some of the world's biggest brands, especially on those larger shoots. How do you manage the stress of, let's say, a global brand with you as a creative lead? How do you manage that stress down to shot per shot, calling action, calling cut on a shot, and while also dealing with the client? I'm very interested.
Yeah. In honestly, I think a lot of it is I don't, you know, especially when you have your own business, you have lots of clients. You know, it's not like they're your boss or something. If it goes badly, like, and you don't work with that client again, there's another client. So there's a little bit of like, whatever. You know, and there's a little bit of, you know, this is all we can do. Now that's the extreme, and that's not the approach to everything, but it's a little bit in the back of my mind. So that's why, you know, because at first I get very uptight with it and very stressed out. But then I reached that point of say, it's not worth it. I'm spending too much time on this and not on important things in life. Too stressed out with that. So a little bit of detachment from it in that respect. Like, hey, look, I'm doing my best job here. And if it doesn't work out well, there's more clients, more fish in the sea. But that was kind of a worst case scenario. But the way that I kind of learned to do it was having the right team around you. Right? So I'd have normally I co-direct things, because I have another director that was much more used to working on sets with teams. So a lot of terminology and stuff that obviously I knew too, but he'd have a much more detailed, comprehensive analysis, you know, grasp of that. so he'd be able to talk to the gaffers or the grips, whatever, and say, "I'll flag that light," whatever they were like. Whereas I just kind of sit back, and sometimes the crew wouldn't even know I was one of the directors. They wouldn't even speak to me, or they barge past me or something, not knowing I'm kind of their boss. And because I don't really, I'd just say to the other guy, I said, "This is what I want out of the scene," or something, and he'd, okay guys, can you get this thing? And maybe the person they go to. So a lot of them probably didn't think I even existed. So it was kind of a creative director kind of role. But so that was a key thing, having a good team around you. And you let your DP, who you trust a lot, you let him choose his assistant director,
right. I have to ask a question about that.
Yeah.
That's a very, very big point, especially for filmmakers. You're saying that you made the decision to bring on a co-director. Am I understanding this correctly? So
I hired another director just for the volume of work anyway. But then a lot of the projects we'd end up co-directing, because he'd gone for. I went for school. I went to college for economics and maths, of all things. He went to art school and proper drama school, and did cinematography stuff and all that things. So he knew everything from a film crew perspective, and did film school. And a lot of it I picked up. So even though they were my concepts I'd done, it was very much a collaboration of his skills, using him to communicate with the team. He was also a lot more personable. So, to the point it was a bit annoying actually. Sometimes we'd have a client come over, and I'd go and get the fridge filled up with all different waters and stuff. And they'd come in and he'd be like, "Oh, hi guys," he'd be Australian. "Hi guys, this guy's not some drinks." But, "Oh, so nice of you, thanks so much." I was like, "Bastard, I got those drinks." But that was his role. He was very personal. He talked to the crew respected him, and I didn't need that. I didn't need that from the crew to come to me and say, look up at me. That's not what I was after. It was them just being in an environment they could do the best they can, and he could speak to them, and he could speak to them well on a level, and they'd like him a lot. And he's got a lot more friends than me, but that's okay, because it was the way it worked best. But I think, but yes, that was one way of that I found. I found it very important to step into that role and be comfortable. I think the other way is just preparation. Oh, sorry.
Andrew's got a question for you.
Oh, okay. I'll ask this really quick. Just preparation. And I came from an editing background first, before filmmaking. So I had an attitude, "I'll fix it in post. And the more we did, I was like, okay, we can't do that all the time. That's where another guy on my team who had experience in that taught me, and he planned things out a lot. And we'd have storyboards done, everything done beforehand. So it was, it's really just, shoot when we shot on the day we're doing production, where we're just executing on what's already been planned and approved. So that was, those are really great kind of skills to have. And then little tricks I could always hire like a PA. If we flew somewhere for a shoot, a PA that had a car, so he'd drive us around. So we're not renting a car, and a PA knows where he's going. And little things like that save money. The client's happy, we get, little things like that I'd work out that'd be useful. So that's how I made that transition and get into a crew of a lot of people without that experience, and produce what I wanted to do out of it, get the product out of it I wanted to do, and then in post we could do what we want.
Right, and I can't stress enough how important it is to highlight that so many directors, so many people that want to be directors, would have a huge problem being in a creative lead position and then having somebody else come onto their ship as a co-director. And it speaks a lot to anyone's character that can recognize that, hey, there is somebody else that should be here next to me.
Just better communicating.
I don't want to name names, but there's some of my favorite musical artists who have become directed some of their own videos, could have benefited from having another director on set with them. And it's actually from watching those very public mistakes, and that many people may not think that they're mistakes. But for me as a director, I'm recognizing the faults of my own ego in somebody else, or the faults of the ego.
It's almost that Steve Jobs thing of being the conductor of the orchestra thing. It's like, if you have a Ferrari and something goes wrong, I want someone that's only fixed Ferraris their entire life, not someone that fixes Ferraris and dishwashers and microwaves and and anything else, but someone that's has probably come across this problem before, because that's their expertise. And it's not my expertise. I'm doing all other things. My expertise is to bring these things together. So to respect that role and then collaborate and let them have their space and give them the environment they need to operate to their maximum. And then you can step back and they'll deliver for you. And doesn't take anything away from me. It empowers them. They want to work with you again. And it really just, it just works. It's just a mixture of work environment that just works for everyone.
That's so beautiful, man. It took me years to learn that lesson. These days, if I'm in front of the camera, I do my best to have a co-director there guiding me, because I know for some people are great at it, of being in front of the camera and still directing. I feel like I need another set of eyes. And it, like I said, it took me years. It took me publishing comic books to understand the value of creating a nurturing ecosystem for other directors, because film school is very competitive and directors are very competitive. And so I love working with directors now and being able to say, hey, you know what, like let's just all collaborate on bigger picture stuff. So it's kudos to you on that one.
I took a lot from like skateboarding and snowboarding, stuff like that. You watch those guys and they're cheering each other on, because the quarter pipe, and they're cheering each other on because they've done they've had their go, whatever. Now they're not, what they do doesn't impact what this next guy's going to do. So they're cheering him on. If he does a good move, they're like, yeah, that's awesome. They're banging the boards. And I took a lot from that. I was like, you know what? Yeah, it's a very competitive landscape, and there's a million filmmakers, and there's also a million jobs to be done. So differentiate yourself in a way that you deliver the best product. And if someone else does a great film, you should say that's an awesome film, great work. Let's collaborate on something. Not like, bastard, you got that job, I'm gonna beat him to the next one, I'll take him down. That negativity has never really been there. Positivity is key to bouncing back from any failures you have yourself in career. If something doesn't work out, it's key to getting the best out of people around you.
That's beautifully said, man. I have one last question, and this question is really connected to the heights you've gotten to as a producer, production company owner. What is, if you could share one story that where you're working for a large client, and what is the most challenging? How have you solved the most challenging problem that you've experienced, like working for a large client? Because, and I think this is helpful for our Justice for Hire community as well, because as time goes on, we're all going to be leveling up our production. It's just simply what's going to happen with the real world ecosystem and how we are collaborating. Right now, we're at a place where a lot of people are shooting on their phones, but some folks are shooting on more professional cameras. But as our ecosystem builds, we will have more formal productions. We will have more people from the community stepping up as directors and as producers of these formal productions. There will be more responsibilities. This is a multi-year plan. So a story like this, I feel like, can help us all as a community understand what goes through the mind of an expert problem solver, because at the end of the day, that is one of the things that I would list on your resume. So
yeah. Okay, so we did have one client. Well, I say one client. It turned there were 3 in one client. It was ABC, and we'd had I was working at the advertising agency, and we had I had a capabilities call with the head of sales for ABC. So they would do all the branded work that was like shown on like Jimmy Kimmel or like Good Morning America, and they were
naming names.
Brands. I'm going to name a lot of names. I'm going to tell people who don't know. And they obviously they heard us out. It was a great conversation, but they've got their roster of people they work with, whatever. And we were obviously bottom of the list. And I got a call once. It was in September, and they had a job that every other person in production company had turned down. So I was the last on the list, which I don't care about. It's a chance, right? And it was that they'd produced 6 commercials in 6 different cities. One of them had to be done in Spanish. for Cigna Insurance. And it was about getting a checkup once a day. So they're like, we need a celebrity in each city. And then a real doctor has to be a real doctor. And we've got to produce this, deliver it, and it needs to be aired on TV in 3 weeks' time. The budget was like $70,000 per commercial. I was like, yeah, we can do it. No problem. And in the middle of and then at the time I was also doing the Victoria's Secret fashion show. I was flying to Paris, I think, for that. And then we were doing the NFL. So every weekend I was filming different NFL at different stadiums. I was like, yeah. I didn't have the bandwidth for it at all. But I was like, yeah, we can do that. And I called up. So I hung up and I called up my producer, Liz, who worked for me for a while, and she had a baby, so she was at home. But she would do freelancing stuff for me. And I was like, I've got a project for us. I said, it's a bit of a challenge. I was like, but you'll be fine. I said, just do whatever you need to do. I'm not going to be, I'll help you out as much as you need me to. I'm not going to call you and ask for an update. I'm going to trust you to do it. If anything goes wrong, blame me. I'll get on the call and take the heat. And said, if you got to spend money, doesn't matter. Just get it done. We hired another director who, for the first shoot we did it with, it's on my website. I think it's with Joey Fatone from NSYNC, and he takes a taxi driver's job where he was a taxi driver for a day, and he has 3 different funny challenges in the day that where like a guy turns up with a girl has loads of balloons, comedic episodes, while the taxi driver goes off to the doctors. Gets his yearly checkup and has the whole Cigna insurance speech. So like, okay, fine. So we do the call sheet. We get, they had Joe Fatone lined up already. That was the only one they did. The rest of them we had to find. We had to do it in Houston, Miami, DC. Connecticut was in Spanish, and Dallas, somewhere else. I want to say Dallas was near it. Maybe it was Dallas. Maybe Dallas as well. But it was 6 in total. So the New York one, I did the first half day, which was the shooting with Joe Fatone. Because the first one, it was the guy from NSYNC. I thought, I fancy that. That'd be fun. Nice to meet him. He was a lovely guy and really humble guy. No drama, no ego with him at all. He was a really easygoing guy, which helpful. But then there's 3 guys. Then I'm like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. Where are you from? I was like, we're from McCann Erickson. We represent, Cigna Insurance. I was like, okay, so are you my client or ABC my client? Oh no, you can report to us. We'll report to ABC. I was like, okay, so now I've worked out there's these 3 layers I got to go through. So it's like, I go to ABC and they go to Cigna. I go to McCann Erickson, who go to Cigna. So then it gets approved like down this chain. And I was like, well, that's not going to make things quick, is it? But okay, that's my bad. The director that I co-directed the first half day with was a guy that was really great. He'd come over to me and I said to him, you do this as much as you need to. Push me. He came over to me and said, Ryan, we've got to do this shot now. We've got 10 minutes, we'll do it, or else we're going to get the storyboard done, the shot list. He's like, Ryan, you stop playing with that. We've got to do this now. I'm like, okay, sorry, Dan, you're right, do it. And he was really a real I don't know what, I don't want to say Nazi because it's a terrible thing to say, but he was really strict basically about this, and I'm paying him to do the job, but that was his job, so I've no problem with that. But we got the shot done. They were very happy. But then they had to go to DC in 2 days' time and do it there. They had to find a local celebrity, then also supporting cast that weren't celebrities. In total, it was 170 vendors we had for that shoot. I know that because I was the one that had to enter all the expense invoices into the system after it was done. But the big challenge was they would write to us and they'd be in DC, for example, all the McCann Erickson people would be in DC, the creative's been approved. And the producer that I hired, Liz, great producer, that worked for me for a while, she sent the call sheet out at like 1 in the morning because that's when she got the final approval for costume, for example. And McCann Erickson said that this is not good enough. We're getting the call sheet at 1 o'clock. I was like, okay, guys, everyone, can we just take a step back? We all know we're in DC. Right? We all know we're starting at 8 o'clock and we're meeting at this place. Right? So it doesn't matter that you got the call sheet at 1 o'clock. It doesn't matter, it's a miracle that things get done anyway. We had to produce taxi TV ads as well, just to add to the fun. So it was just being realistic with the client in a polite way to say that, and I was relaxed because I was like, look, we really are pulling off kind of what everyone else, every other professional we went to before said no to. And there's one thing Liz couldn't, one of the shoots Liz couldn't do. We brought a different producer in, field producer in, who the head of sales ABC didn't like. And she's also a nervous Nelly. So she was like, really, she was like, oh, if this goes bad, I have to lose my job. And I was like, yeah, you're not helping things right now. And she didn't like him at all. So I remember getting off, I had to do an interview in LA with actually Julie Andrews, of all things. I flew to LA for the day, got out, and I was in the Virgin America lounge for 2 hours talking her off a cliff, because she was like, oh, it's terrible. I was like, look, not much we can do now. They're in on the shoot. He gets a good job done, but it all came from an impression of they wanted to talk to him sooner than he was actually going to be engaged with the project. He was walking on the street in Manhattan when he was on this call, so there was obviously background noise, and that irritated her. So she kind of had it out for him to start with, but it all worked out in the end. But it was just, you have to stand up for yourself to some degree with some of these clients. That was a big key thing. And remain true to what your objective is, which is to get this thing shot. And these days with these people, and trust the people, the team you built. We had a very small team that did the job. We didn't need a big team. We needed a producer and an assistant, and then the camera guy did his job, the director did his job, a camera assistant, and the director was like an AD as well, so he managed the set. And then I would just be there for the client and massage the client, keep him happy. And then we sent, but the costume, for example, was like, okay, the main person wear a red top. That would go to ABC. They'd be like, yep, great. And I would go to McCann Erickson. Yep, great. And we go to Cigna Insurance. Yep, great. So by the time we got it done, it was like, it would be 1 a.m. So, and they're complaining about that. I'm like, but guys, let's just be realistic. This is we're pulling off a lot here. Let's everyone take a step back and realize that. And that, if you want blue in the morning, we can change it to blue. It's not a big deal. We'll see you in 6 hours or 7 hours time. We can chat about it then. So it was basically the way to overcome that was just bringing everyone down to earth. And then I'd already thought how we can set up the post-production, which was very easy done, which is we made a one room, which everyone had 3 edit stations. There was a TV on the wall above every edit station. I had a couch, and all McCann Erickson came in and sat there, and we'd have one editor show a rough cut, and everyone would have headphones on working on their own edits. And they would literally just look at one, watch that, give some feedback, but thanks, he'd carry on working, move to the next person, watch that video, give the feedback. But okay, thanks, he'd go back to work, go to the next guy, feedback, thanks, go back to the first guy, he's made the changes already. They're like, yep, that's it, that's good to go, yeah, I like that, send that off to the client. And then go to the next person, and so on. And we got through those 6 videos very quickly doing it. Like, we got it done in 1 day. And a taxi TV edit was just cutting it to 4:3, so that was pretty easy. Just to change that. But the whole time we still had this, like, she was called Mindy, nervous Nelly person. It's just I'm gonna lose my job with this. I'm like, everything's fine, relax. We got, even the Spanish one, which I haven't got a clue what they said, seems to be going down well. So. It was a challenge. I put poor Liz, under a lot of stress to produce it. But I said to her, look, and one error, one mistake with that, which is one change had to be done, that I gave to the editor, and he missed one change. And I remember got on the phone, and there was like 12 people on the phone call. And I said, he said, do you have that other edit? And I was like, well, no, it's almost done. I said, but he missed one little small change. And this guy, McCann Erickson, just starts yelling at me on the phone. And I just took the headset away from my ear. I was just like, okay, when he's done, I'll talk to him. So he yelled, and I said, look, I'm really sorry. I said, look, I'd seen him been pushed a lot for this. I said, but, still, it's our fault. So, blame me. He's like, yeah, it's all well and good saying that, but it's me. I have to talk to the client. I said, I understand that, but, we've pulled this off and we got it done. So, we'll deliver that straight away with you within the hour, and then we can go from there. But apart from that, is there any other issues? I said, no, everything else is fine, but, get that edit done. I said, no problem at all. Sorry about that. And move forward. So just being humble with it, calm, and just keeping everyone grounded by the fact that we pulled off 6 commercials in 3 weeks, across 6 different cities, one in Spanish. Was just, and my team worked really hard on that, and they got paid very well for that, which they should do, and they were excellent. And I have minimal involvement in that. I just put out fires. I said, if you need anything, call me, I'll deal with it. If you need to rent this thing, just do it. Just do it. I authorized anything. Do it. You have the impact. And I never once called them for an update. I said, you won't hear from me. I said, if you need me, I'm there, but I'm not going to bother you. I trust you. Do it.
Right.
And that worked.
I want to, I mean, what you just, how you handle that is a great example of gentle strength. And I think that it's a shame that so many of us have to deal with people who might bring that type of energy to our collaborations in any aspects of life. I do my best to stay away from that energy, and when I have experienced it normally pushes me away very quickly, or causes me to. I've had to learn how to not only stand up to that energy, but sometimes to actually directly challenge it. But that being said,
yeah, sorry.
I say this because so many people on this call are part of our team, and we're expanding and growing our family now. That my hopes are that we can always remain loving and constructive in the way that we talk to each other, and do
totally. Perspective.
Yeah,
perspective is key.
Yeah, as a team as a whole, it's so important, and it's just part of the way I personally want to live. I'm never into it. It's very, very rare that I feel like raising your voice to yell is appropriate, because sometimes it is appropriate sometimes, but it's not something to just be thrown around lightly when you're doing your best to create something together. Andre's got a comment or a question.
More of a question. Thanks, Jen. Hi, Ryan. Thank you for sharing. I was just listening, and never once I heard from your story that you played it safe. And I just wanted to ask, what would be the calibration point between playing it safe and going for the crash, if it was to apply something from squash or racing into your business life?
Good question, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that was really kind of setting the tone of who you are, and then not to be messed with in a kind of a way. And that would only really in a business world kind of show itself with maybe the yelling part, which I don't really do. But I think really, I never, people that teams that probably the only way it showed itself is with teams I worked with. I never got cross with them if they made a mistake. Right? I'd rather make them mistakes, because there's the only way they're going to learn. If I sit over their shoulder and watch them, they're going to just be fed up. Right? And I have no interest in doing that. Also, I'm just bored. I would be so bored. So, rather than do it, we did a whole TV series for 30 minutes episodes, and for I forget the network now, in the ABC family anyway. And I didn't watch one episode, and I was the post-production supervisor on that, and it was all post-production because it was all self-shot. But I had a great editor. So and he'd be there without me saying anything until 4 or 5 in the morning with the director working on it. So what am I going to do? Watch it and say, actually, guys did this? No, they were good. They knew what they were doing. I still haven't watched one episode. I'm sure it was great. They commissioned a second season, so we did that. So that was good. But I think I'd only really get annoyed with people if they didn't admit to a fault or a problem. If they made a mistake, they wouldn't admit to it. And I think that comes down to understanding what you're doing. So I understood how to, any part of it. Like one guy I was in LA once, and there was a guy who was rotoscoping, or he was cutting out something in After Effects. And he wrote me, he's like, I can't do that. That's not possible. I was like, yes, it is. Yes, it is possible. I was like, this is how you do it. Don't try and play me off as not knowing what I'm doing. I know how to do this, and this is how you do it. It was like, okay, and it was clearly he just couldn't be bothered to do it. Right? It was very clear. That was the only times I get a little bit annoyed with people, was when they showed that kind of mentality. But I wouldn't. I'd say, look, I know my stuff, and I know what you're going through this, and let's get it done. You know how to do it. If you need me to tell you how to get it done, let's say you do it. Now you go do it. You got it. And they realized they couldn't bullshit me. And that was kind of key. So understanding kind of to answer your question, I think it probably crash or no crash, just understanding what level of pushing people you need to do and how you have to do it. And sometimes just showing your experience and showing that you know what they're talking about, so they can't trick you, is enough in that circumstance. If that answers your question.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to. So it's acknowledging the other people's expertise, but not undermining or undervaluing your position of authority as the subject matter expert. No.
Yeah, and they tried to kind of. I could tell, I knew it was laziness from them, right? And it was a detailed thing to rotoscope, right? They go around and put these keyframes in around a certain object so they could get rid of a background, whatever. There was a lot of work. I've done it for a slow motion video I shot like 120 frames a second, and it went wrong, so I had to do it for like 15 seconds of it, which almost workload or anything. I knew what he was doing, so it was like, it was laser. So it's almost like, and you can do it with clients where everyone knows how to do it, but clients that don't know better, I'd often tell my assistant to say, I'm on set today. I'm not here. Tell them I'm on set today. If I don't want to speak to them that day. So you can pull the wool over people's eyes with little white lies every now and then. But when someone tried to pull over me, someone on my team, by trying to, because he didn't think I knew about it, then I'd just come forward and say, look, I know what you're trying to do. Let's call it out. So we'll be real here. And if you're too tired to do it or your other issues, that's fine. Let's discuss those. If not, then this is how you do it. And send me the final version when you're done. That was it. It was just all it took.
Thank you.
That's it seems like a super gracious principle of connecting thought, word, and deed, and having that be a very much a foundation for the interactions, Ryan.
Yeah, and also if ever I didn't really have to, but ever you do have to get strong with someone or shadow them, if you never are that person, and then one time you are, it makes that so impactful.
Yeah. Well, I think I
wouldn't like to do that. I always try and circumvent that and see things as they are and try and put myself in their shoes and make sure that it never got to that point. But if it did, then I could step up and just exert myself in a way that wouldn't want to do, but I'd do it. And it carries so much more power. The fact that this person's very calm, all of a sudden is like, oh God, I really have pissed him off.
That's I think it's really, connecting that back to some of the other ideas you shared previously in terms of like creating the gap, creating that what Andrew was asking about in terms of that persona that, hey, like this is like he's going to go for it, and the strength associated with that. But I also think that the same strength will also allow you to recognize when someone has lost control, because I would consider somebody who is yelling for no good reason in a meeting someone who is dealing with challenges,
the underlying issues.
Yeah. And dealing with essentially something that is, if I address that in a public forum, I could actually be removing some of the optimization that I'm looking to establish by nature of addressing that. And that if I do need to address that, it might be best on a
one-to-one.
Yeah, one-to-one. And
it's a hard line. It's a hard line to balance. It's because some people you see it and it's and I found it hard because I always felt I was approachable, but then obviously I had a boss who was the CEO of the company, and I put myself in my shoe. I thought, would I go to him with this? Like, probably not. So even though I tried to be approachable, I was like, I understand their trepidation. That's the word, finally. Trepidation in coming to me. But that's also that director I mentioned. He was also as well as on set. He'd also relate to the rest of the team in a way that was a colleague way. But we had a friendship, so he'd come to me and say, I think you should, look after this guy's worked a lot really hard and he feels like he wants to get in that space. I'd always sit down and I'd say thanks for that, because that feedback would never come to me. So I was able to then have one-on-one with him and say, are you working on the stuff you want to work on? Because if it's not, you're going to leave soon. If you're making people do stuff that they don't enjoy, you're going to have a high turnover of staff, which won't help you very much. So I'd always try and kind of say, look, nothing's wrong. If you want to work on more narrative stuff, then that's what I'll push you towards that. But that would always be the key thing. So that communication is very hard when people don't want to communicate things, and people don't always want to receive it either. If it's your boss, they don't want to know. They don't really care about that. I found that at Ernst & Young. They didn't really care. Just do this. And the way it was, I put too many hours in. And they said, you can take some hours off. You log in too many hours. But we weren't billing the client, or I wasn't being paid overtime. I was just doing the work. But I said, can you cut back on that? I'm just like, okay, I can work less if you want me to. But all right. Well, but anyway, so some people don't want to hear it. But yeah, I think it's a very key thing to balance that right.
Right. We have two more questions. We have Guru Merkaba, aka Z Peoples, and we have Hockley Films. So let's go with Guru first.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah, thank you for sharing all this knowledge and stuff with us. I did have a question about, like, in your business life, have you had an idea or a business plan or something that you wanted to execute, but you had multiple modes of execution available for you? Like, and if you did, like, how did you resolve that? Like, I know in racing and stuff, you'll have a split decision. Like, you don't know which one's the right decision to make, but like there's that instinct.
Yeah, I think usually it's normally been, and it can be frustrating. It can be like you have a creative idea for something and it means, oh, this would be perfect for this brand, but you just can't get to the right person, right? We can't get to them because there's all these layers. And you decide, how do you do it? So that's you try and tackle that in a different way, either doing a spec type thing and get into them, or just try and network to them, and and there's tricks of the trade you can do with that, and networking. If your LinkedIn is a great tool for that. Just befriending people that also know them, and they come in and they write them a note and you say, oh, so and so told me I should speak to you about this idea, which is complete bollocks, but but they'll be like, oh, I respect that person. Yeah, I'm friends with them. Yeah. Oh, did they? Okay, I'll listen to you. And then the challenge for me always is condensing that idea into something that's short. Because normally I work, I think in general, nuances are being lost everywhere in society. And nuances are really important. They show people who they are. They're what their intentions are. They show that, and sometimes the nuances in a creative or a campaign can really make a difference between a heartfelt messaging narrative, that gets the message across, and something that's just thrown to one side. So for me, it's been instinct, and then whatever, obviously after I've exhausted whatever, if I have the time to, with racing, you don't have time to, you have to go with your instinct, go for it and see what happens, hope it works out. But when you have time, then obviously use your knowledge as best you can. But then and then instinct is a big part of that. And then just the more you try, the more different avenues you try, you're going to hit something.
Amazing, thank you.
Thank you. So we have our last question is going to be from Alec, but first we're going to have I know it's getting late on the East Coast for you guys, but first we have Hockley, aka Nighthawk Films, coming up. So let me just put you on pin. There we go.
Okay. Hi everyone. So my question is, how do you get funding that spiritually aligns with who you are? Because I read online that some indie film companies do like horror or porn, which thank God I've never had to do, but that doesn't align with me. So, especially in the downtime between the big projects, because some film companies between big projects, that downtime, they can lose a lot of money. And that's question one. And question two is, I've read online that some film sets, after shooting, there would be like a frat house. That would be like a lot of drinking and drugs. And so I guess as the creator, you have to establish a standard, right, that aligns with your morals.
Yeah, I mean, good questions. I mean, but to me, it's always been our brand has been very important about what we do, and I wouldn't want to. The people I have working for, a couple of guys went to film school and stuff. We went through our first. My company was acquired by an agency. The agency was has 32 offices across the US. And they did a lot of like press junkets, and they do the red carpet stuff, and they want us to go and film the red carpet and then the Q&A with the actors after the screening, and then cut a 7-minute like B-roll kind of highlights that they'd send out to media so they could put it on news networks, right? Now that kind of job isn't really what a guy that went to Full Sail University and studied film and stuff and is very creative and very good at what he does wants to do very often, and especially when it's a day, they tell us a day before. And they have to be in Philly, and they have to go down there. And when it's down there, they say, "Oh, why haven't you got two radio mics?" And so we only said to bring one. And it's like, so all we can do is mess this thing up. So they've had the same vendor for years, and all we can do is mess it up, right? Because and the agency's reputation with that studio has been going on for years. So you don't want to be the person that screwed it up. So you have that bit of a pressure, and it's so he feels the pressure. He's not fulfilled creatively, and there's only some amount of time they're going to put up with that. Plus they're paying us like $3,000, and it's just not worth it. So I remember sitting down the start of the year with the CEO and the CFO and saying, I'm not going to say no to those jobs. I'm just going to price them high. And I priced them like 11,000 or something like that. And all but 2 people said no. So we had like a bunch of requests for the year, and I priced it, and they'd go, no, that's too much money. But fine. Twice, 2 people said, okay, that's fine. And like cash back on those. They were so cheap. So it was kind of like, and they have a nice car. I drove down there, stayed in the Ritz-Carlton, something like that. It was great. They had a great time. But it's focusing on what we did best, which is creating the proper kind of narratives that we wanted to do and upping our game. And we managed, and at the end of the year, we doubled our profit target. And we did that in probably, I think, maybe less, no, 3/5 of the number of clients. Because it was so much less. It was 162 projects, I think, the year before, averaging around $5,000 a project, and then it went to something like 70 projects and averaging 25,000 each. So we just basically went out there saying, we're here, we're not here. And that meant, and the first 3 months of that year, I was petrified because we didn't get, to make that jump is a big step. And but I believed in the quality of the team and what we produced, and it was about pitching it. It was challenged me to pitch it right. And we got one big job in the March, which relieved a lot of pressure, and then it snowballed. We got so much in, and it went crazy to the point where I got bored pitching. I pitched the head of Condé Nast content, and I was 15 minutes late. I stopped off at All Saints before I went there, got a new outfit for myself, which I'd have to get the job to get the commission to pay for. I threw away my clothes in the dumpster, went down there, and I wasn't prepared, didn't do one bit of research, but within half an hour I had a $100,000 job to partner them with Amex, because I knew what they want to hear. You know exactly what they want to hear. So when you have the qualities there, and they've seen it on your site, you show them the right videos, they can go, wow, that's incredible, and stuff that isn't that difficult to achieve, but it's just approaching it the right way. It really is. It's so empowering that you don't have to go down that route of doing the small jobs, but in that in between period can be scary and can make you doubt yourself. And this is going to work because it's sink or swim at that point. But I just knew that if we carried on the way we were with high volume, low revenue, we have a high turnover of staff, and we're going to just about make our profit target, and and I want to be happy. Our website will be crap. So it'll be full of, it'd be full of like, this is how this Canon printer works, which is not going to get us many jobs. So it was really just following what I believed in, and what I believe my team could do. And they did a great job, and it worked out really well. So, in your second question, sorry.
My second question was, I read online that some film sets after.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're always too knackered for that. We're always too exhausted.
Okay, so
none of that went on. Yeah.
So I guess it depends on the tone. If
yeah, and I think it's also the difference between like a film set and then like commercials and stuff, right? So we have a client on set and stuff, and we've got deadlines to meet, and a film we have like a 16-week block of filming, and people putting, I couldn't do it personally. So 14-hour days for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. These guys work so hard, and they've got one job, and they can't. It's like a military thing. They can't step outside of their box, right? And maybe someone's job that day is to say, there's a cable here, and everyone that walks by say, watch out for the cable, watch out for the cable. That's all they can do. And and to me, I'd like to have an open set where like someone can go to me and say, maybe you should try this type of different shot, right? But you can do that in that environment. You can't do that in a film set, because then everyone will do it as a director, and then nothing get filmed. So it's understanding that that dynamic. But no, we'd always we'd be in a rush to get back to the office, and get things packed away, charged up, and ready for the next day. So yeah, it's our Christmas party would go like to Christmas party. We did Sleep No More. No Sleep. What was it called in New York? What was a theatre show?
Sleep No More.
Sleep No More.
It was yeah. So that was our Christmas. That was our Christmas party, which is kind of actually it's a solo experience. It wasn't a very good Christmas party, because they let you off in the different floors, and you just go exploring, and you make of it what you will. We all ended up at the bar at the end. It was a great time, but it was just, we did a lot of out of the box stuff like that, and like days we were slow, didn't have much work on. We'd just go, and there's a movie theatre underneath us. I'd say our morning meeting on Monday says, let's go watch a movie. And we go downstairs and watch a movie. And whenever that happened, every day, anytime I did that, everyone would be there till 8, 9 p.m. I wouldn't have to ask them once. They'd just be there working, kind of ideas on stuff they want to do, because it motivated them. So, which wasn't what I was aiming for at all. It was just like, okay, we haven't got a lot on right now, so you know what? Let's go watch a movie. Why not? A corporate card done. That's it. We'll go see the movie. Only people in the cinema, but and it worked. Luckily, those things worked. And that was partly because my boss, the CEO, was in Boston, so I could get away with a lot of things. So long as I hit my numbers, I was fine.
I would just jump in terms of regarding a set. Oftentimes you have insurance for that space as well. So I think that's one of the things that'll help. If you're dealing with any challenges with crew members who might be a little more lax after the final shot of the day, it really becomes, from my perspective, about who the producer is. It's really more of a producer's job than a director's job to make sure that the army moves. So you have all the soldiers there. It's like, hey, like cut, wrap. Okay, everyone, let's get off this set. And if you don't have that type of command on set from and sometimes you're a director, producer, et cetera, it may have to be you. But if you don't have that type of command on set, you're going to get a lot of sloppiness, and that sloppiness can, for some people, cost them their entire career. So I think it's really, really recognizing. I think that's something that I was fortunate to see very young. But it really has to be when you're on set, it's a discipline. It's the same. You walk into a ring, it's a discipline. It's you're there to get the job done and get out. And as long as as the leader or the commander of that set, that's the mentality everyone needs to abide by. I think that pretty much every word, every little bit of direction or any crew guidance that you give is going to contain that feeling, because that's something that goes all day. I know producers that what's that guy's name? It's like one of Chris Nolan's guys. Buddy of his would say that he would, and I don't run my sets this way, but he would identify the person who would fail within 2 weeks, and he would keep an eye on that person, knowing that they're going to fail, with the intention of making a scene of like a true example of that one person that's going to fail. And the second that person like messes up, he explodes on them with the intention of making sure that everyone on set knows that this is what's going to happen to you if you don't abide by that discipline. And
it's like only as strong as like the weakest component.
Absolutely. And I think that I don't apply that, but I have a lot of respect for that. You know,
well, his Christopher Nolan's films are pretty phenomenal. So
it wasn't Chris Nolan. It's just like his buddy.
But
like,
but obviously it works, right?
Yeah, it's like his producer. It might be his producer. But whose name I completely forgot. Who? But anyway, but with that said,
he's annoyed about that. Probably. He's like, remember me? I made the film better.
Okay, so and Alec, final question. And Alec and we've been wanting to get you and Ryan together for a while. Alec is a JFH member for a long time, a racing enthusiast and more, and a filmmaker.
A little bit.
So
working on it. I'm working on it right now. I'm learning to make some music actually, so that way I can post and record whatever I want and not have to worry about the copyright stuff. So, but I do have a question, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Of course, go for it.
Okay. So I would imagine that when it comes to filming or any other part of your life where you have to create, there's a process that you take to get to that creative mindset. That because I mean, I feel that way for myself. I would imagine that for a lot of people, it's that way. Where do you find the best places in your life to search for that creativity, as well as what does your own process look like to get into that creative mindset?
Yeah, so let's say like,
I'm sorry. No, it's okay. I was gonna say
I got you.
Okay. All right. I was about to give you an example, but if you get it, you get it.
Oh yeah, I totally get it, and I think it's very, very important. And it's an individual answer, obviously, for everyone. But I think the process is the same. But for me, it was really understanding what got me to that space of being able to think of ideas, right? And that can be the tools as well, right? So if I didn't have, if I used it as a pen and paper, or as an iPad, or whatever, I had to I'd look back at the times when I come to good creative, and I'd be like, okay, what got me into that mental place where I blocked out everything else? And honestly, the headphones are a big deal. It knocks out a lot of the world, but I try and maybe it'd be watching trailers online or watching like inspirational directors I know are phenomenal that are doing short films that are now doing like big commercials for like Audi and stuff like that. And I look at their work, and that would inspire me. But it basically blocking off all the noise, right? All the noise in the world and things you got to do, and saying, okay, you know what? I've got these things to get done, but they're not getting done in the next 3 hours. So that's just a fact. My phone's off. No, I'm just in this for 3 hours, and that might get you to that place, or it might just push you close to that place.
Okay.
But it's the noise around us, which can even be just people that live with you or around you, right? Just coming and saying, "Oh, do you want a sandwich?" So I need to be left alone right now. Just breaking out of you need to get in almost like a trance in a kind of a way. I find it so, and that's for me. I'd schedule meetings, and so I said earlier, meetings would be like 3-4 hours apart. Because if I had a meeting then an hour, then a meeting then an hour, I couldn't get anything done. I get nothing done, nothing creative done. And it's just like I can't get into something properly because then I'd be like meeting. So I'd know that as soon as I started doing it. In my mind, there's this clock ticking. So and then if you're really stuck, it's things like going for a walk. Has been the biggest thing I've found. Things like that. Go for walks and music. Sorry.
So like, if you were having that hour after or meeting every hour kind of thing, it would be like a release of pressure, right? That's what you like. Yeah. If you have that block, it's almost like trying to take yourself out of that space rather than isolating and focusing on something that might be stressing you out or something you might be trying to get done.
Yeah, that and if I have a whole day to work on something but I'm still not getting into a groove, I'd go for a walk or something to get me to just, that's why people have good ideas in the shower, right? Because the way the body works is we're distracted by the water hitting us, that it frees up part of our mind that then thinks and comes up with ideas. That's a common answer. Many people that have a similar question, they say they get ideas in the shower. That's because we're distracted by something that we're not thinking about, and that frees up the other part of our brain to come alive. And the only other technique I've used that has helped has been getting small things done. So at the start of the day, if I'm a bit tired in the morning, I'm not going to come up with the best thing then, but I'll just get quick hits on my to-do list done. Just small things done. It gives you that sense of accomplishment. It gives you that sense of like, you know, okay, I'm achieving something, getting things done. And that just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And it also reduces the stress because you've dealt with these kind of issues. So nothing big, but little things like, you know, pay my energy bills today, you know, log on, or do that, change the card number, whatever. All things that are a pain in the ass, right? But it's progress if you get it done. It takes 5 minutes to get it done. So understanding how you work and when you work best. If you work best later at night, then shift your day that way and stick to it as best you can. Some things you can't always do, but some things you can do. And just say that I want to give you my best version of me when we chat, and that's going to be 6 o'clock, around after 6 tonight. Can we make that work? And just being open with people about that and understanding yourself. So I think that's how to answer that. I think that's what I've learned to do.
Thank you.
Ryan,
and let's hang out. Let's email me again. We'll meet up. We'll do something together.
Sounds good.
Sure.
Ryan, thank you so much for sharing so much with us tonight. You know, there's so many takeaways, and you know, I'm just really, really grateful for having you in not only in the community, but having this whole community around to be able to partake in this. So thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Ryan, and you know, this is our network.
Thanks, guys.
You know, everyone's always accessible. So if you have questions for Ryan, you can easily reach out to him. Follow-up questions. You may not have something right now, but you know, come up with it tomorrow, etc. You know,
you can always email me again if I don't reply to you the first time. Just keep hammering me again. I'll eventually get it. I'll get it, because sometimes if I miss it, you know. So don't feel shy about that. Just email me, and then email me again and again. And say email me with a blank email to say FYI email. I won't be offended. I'll be like, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you so much, man. Thank you everybody for being here.
All right, thanks.
Have a great night, and we'll be back next week with another episode of The Value Add from Real World, our new series. So love everybody.
Cheers,
thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Ryan.
Bye.
Good seeing you.
Bye, guys. You too. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.